Hello students, today we will be doing the next topic of change in profit sharing ratio, that is treatment of reserves and accumulated losses. As you are aware that in balance sheet reserves come on liability side and accumulated losses come on your asset side. Now these reserves are basically created out of P&L appropriation as we did in chapter 1. So at the time of reconstitution, that is change in PSR, either these reserves had to be distributed among the old partners in their old ratio, or the contribution should be given by the gaining partner to the sacrificing partner. Now there are two cases in reserves and accumulated losses. The first case, when it is mentioned that the reserves are to be distributed, or it is mentioned that they are not to be shown in the new balance sheet, or the question is silent about it. In that case, all the reserves which appear on the liability side are distributed among the old partners in old ratio, and all the accumulated losses like your advertisement suspense, your P&L debit balance or deferred revenue expenditure, these are written off from all the partners capital account in their old ratio. Now the second case is when they say that it is not to be touched or not to be distributed, or they say pass a single journal adjustment entry, a single entry for the treatment of reserves and accumulated losses. In this case, we need to calculate the gaining ratio and the sacrificing ratio, and then we need to add the reserves and subtract the accumulated losses. The same entry is passed for the goodwill also. So in case if the goodwill is given in the adjustment, so in that amount of goodwill the reserves will be added, accumulated losses will be subtracted, and this amount, in case if this amount comes as 90,000 and the gaining ratio is 1/10 and sacrificing ratio is 1/10, so the gaining partner will be debited and the sacrificing partner will be credited. So 90,000 into 1/10, so it will be debited by 9,000 and credited with 9,000. I'll just take a question. For example, this is question number 10 of T.S. Garewal. The old ratio of A and B is 3:2. The new ratio is 1:1. In the balance sheet, profit and loss account has a credit balance of 1,50,000. That means profit. So we are going to calculate the gaining ratio and the sacrificing ratio if you have to follow step 2. This is the first case, that is this profit and loss account, that is the profit has to be distributed among the old partners in their old ratio. So this 1,50,000 will be distributed in the ratio 3:2. And in case if this P&L has a debit balance, that means if it is a loss, in that case it will be written off between A and partner in their old ratio. Now we come to a specific type of reserve, that is workmen compensation reserve. Now this reserve is created to compensate the workers in case if we have to pay to the workers any amount in future, so that will be a loss or an expense for the firm. So that loss or expense is not taken from profit and loss account. We create this reserve so that loss can be compensated by this reserve. Now there are 2-3 cases in this. First case is when there is no liability against this workmen compensation reserve. The reserve is 15,000 and there is no liability. So this reserve will be distributed among the old partners in their old ratio. And in the new balance sheet, nothing will appear because there is no reserve, no liability. Second case is when the liability is 10,000, the reserve is 15,000. So 15,000 reserve, out of 15,000 reserve, 10,000 will be transferred to the liability, that is workmen compensation payable, and 5,000 will be transferred to the partner's capital account in the old ratio. In the new balance sheet, workmen compensation payable, that is liability, will appear on the liability side as 10,000. Third case, when the liability is 15,000, the reserve is 15,000. The whole reserve will be transferred to the liability, so nothing will be given to the partners, and in the balance sheet, on the liability side, workmen compensation payable will come as 15,000. The fourth case, when the reserve is 15,000 and the liability is 20,000. So in this case, 15,000 from the reserve will be transferred to the liability and 5,000 will be taken from the revaluation account. So 20,000 will appear in the new balance sheet. In revaluation account, a liability of 5,000 has arises. So the loss there will be loss of 5,000 which will be written off from the partner's capital account in their old ratio. Similar to workman compensation reserve, we have a similar type of a specific reserve, which is investment fluctuation reserve. Now this reserve is created to compensate any fall in the value of investment. I'm repeating again, this reserve is created to compensate fall in the value of investment. That means in case if the investment value is same or if it is increasing, so this reserve will not be used for investment, rather it will be distributed among the old partners in their old ratio. So when there is no change in investment, here I've taken a case, it's question number 16 of T.S. Garewal. I've taken a case where investment fluctuation reserve is 60,000 and your investment is 4 lakh. First case is, that is, there is no change in the investment. The market value of investment is 4 lakh. So this whole 60,000 will be transferred to the old partner's capital account in old ratio. Second case is when the investment's value increases from 4 lakh to 4 lakh 24,000. So this investment fluctuation reserve of 60,000 will be transferred to the partner's capital account in old ratio, and this 24,000 will go in revaluation account on the credit side, and this profit of 24,000 will be distributed among the partners in the old ratio. Third case is that from 4 lakh the value has dropped to 3 lakh 70,000. That means 30,000 it has reduced. So IFR, that is investment fluctuation reserve, is 60,000, out of which 30,000 will go to investments. Rest 30,000 will be distributed among partners in their old ratio. And in the fourth case, if the value has gone down from 4 lakh to 3 lakh 10,000, that is 90,000, and our reserve is of 60,000. So from reserve 60,000 will be used, from revaluation 30,000 will be used, and investment 90,000 will go down. So this loss of 30,000, that is the revaluation loss, will be written off among the partners in their old ratio. And in all the cases in the new balance sheet, IFR will not be shown because that reserve is no more, but the investments will come in their new value. I hope this topic is clear. It was of reserve. Rest of the reserves, general reserve and contingency reserve, normal value treatment will be done. Now students, mind it, here I have discussed the first case, that is reserves are being distributed. Now in this only, if the entry was, it was the second case that gaining partner to sacrificing partners entry was supposed to be done. So in this case, the value of reserve is we are going to take is 30,000. So 30,000 into gaining ratio or sacrificing ratio, and this amount, this 30,000 which we have a distributing among the partners capital, this amount, whatever the amount comes, for example if the gaining ratio is 1 by 10, so 30,000 into 1 by 10. Now in case if Y is gaining, so Y's capital account debit to X capital account debit, 3,000 and 3,000 is going to come. Thank you students.